Heinrich Jöckel, řečený Pinďa, bývalý velitel malé pevnosti v Terezíně. Je obžalován, že vraždil, zabíjel, nakládal s člověkem jako s otrokem.
Picture this. A man who spent years deciding who lived, who starved, who was beaten, and who quietly disappeared behind prison walls, standing under a rope, with nowhere left to hide. No guards to bark orders at. No prisoners to terrorize. Just gravity, justice, and a very long overdue appointment with consequences.
Yeah.
This story doesn't end with a dramatic escape or a secret bunker in Argentina. It ends at the gallows. Welcome back to UK Pancakes, where we flip history until the uncomfortable bits fall right onto your plate. Today we're diving into one of the lesser-known but deeply satisfying chapters of World War II justice, the brutal execution of the commandant of Terezin's small fortress, the man who turned a prison into a nightmare factory, Heinrich Jöckel. And real quick, if you like your history sharp, fast, and allergic to sugarcoating, hit subscribe and click that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's rewind. When people hear Nazi concentration camps, they usually think of Auschwitz, industrialized murder on a scale that still defies comprehension. But the Third Reich didn't rely on one megacamp. It built a sprawling network of prisons, labor camps, transit camps, and torture centers across occupied Europe. Some were enormous. Others were small, cramped, and terrifying in a more intimate way. One of those places sat in what is now the Czech Republic. A quiet town with thick walls, old fortifications, and a history that long predated Hitler. The Nazis turned part of it into a Gestapo prison known as the Small Fortress of Terezín. And that's where Heinrich Jöckel comes in. Jöckel was born on July 10, 1898, in Offenbach in Maine. No tragic backstory, no dramatic origin myth, just a fairly ordinary German upbringing. He left school early, worked as a farm laborer, and served in World War I. When that war ended and Germany collapsed into economic chaos, Jöckel, like many others, went looking for answers in extremist politics. Enter the Nazi Party. He joined in 1931, well before Hitler seized full power and officially entered the SS in 1933. This wasn't some clueless latecomer swept up by propaganda. This was an early adopter, a believer. And the SS noticed. Promotions followed. Untersturmführer, Obersturmführer, then Hauptsturmführer. The resume of a man who knew how to follow orders and how to enjoy the power that came with them. By the time World War II broke out, Jöckel wasn't on the front lines. He was doing something arguably worse, helping build and run the Nazi camp system. When Germany occupied Czechoslovakia, first the Sudetenland in 1938, then the rest in 1939, the machinery of terror moved in fast. Camps, prisons, labor sites. Fear as policy. In February 1939, Jöckel was sent to the Sudetenland to help establish labor camps. That apparently went well enough for his superiors to give him something bigger. By 1940, he was assigned to the Gestapo prison at the small fortress of Terezín. This place had history. Long before the Nazis arrived, it had been a prison under the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Even Gavrilo Princip, the assassin whose gunshots sparked World War I, had been imprisoned there. But under Nazi control, the small fortress became something else entirely. It wasn't a ghetto like the main Terezín camp.
It was a punishment site.
A dead end. Resistance fighters. Saboteurs. Political prisoners. Jews who violated Nazi racial laws or escaped other camps. They were sent here to be broken. Under Jöckel's command, conditions were calculated cruelty. Cells designed for a handful of people were packed with up to 90 prisoners. 3-tier wooden planks served as beds. No privacy. Barely any water. One sink. One toilet if you were lucky. Lights were forbidden. Heating didn't exist. Disease spread like wildfire. Roll calls happened twice a day, no matter the weather, no matter who collapsed. Men and women were separated. Nationalities were separated. Jews were singled out. Jewish prisoners were shaved, forced to wear yellow stars, and often crammed into the worst cells, some with no toilets or ventilation at all. Medical care? Technically, there was a tiny infirmary. In reality, it was a cruel joke. Jewish and Soviet prisoners were routinely denied treatment altogether by direct order of Heinrich Jöckel himself. People died from infections, exhaustion, and untreated injuries that would have been minor anywhere else. Executions were part of daily life. A special courtyard, once a shooting range, became the killing ground. Prisoners were forced to witness executions as a warning. Most victims were shot. A few were hanged. Bodies were dumped into mass graves inside the camp walls. Historians estimate around 300 executions took place there, though the true number may never be known. And Jöckel? He lived comfortably inside the fortress with his family. While prisoners starved, he slept at home. While people died from typhus, he ate regular meals. Power has a way of insulating monsters from the noise they create. By 1945, the war was collapsing around him. The Red Army was advancing. The end was visible and terrifying. In May 1945, just days before liberation, Jöckel issued one final order. 53 prisoners were sentenced to death. They were shot. Then he fled, abandoning the camp 3 days before Soviet troops arrived. He told his family to return to Germany without him. He tried to disappear. Didn't work. Within weeks, American counterintelligence tracked him down. He was arrested, interrogated, and eventually handed over to Czech authorities. In January 1946, Heinrich Jöckel was extradited back to Czechoslovakia. And here's where history gets poetic. He was imprisoned inside the same fortress he once ruled, in the same cramped Jewish cells, with the same walls, the same cold. For the first time, he experienced the place without a uniform and without power. His trial followed in a Czech courtroom. Survivors testified. Witnesses described the beatings, the executions, the denial of medical care. The court didn't need theatrics. The evidence spoke for itself. The verdict: death. On October 26, 1946, Heinrich Jöckel was led to a courtyard near the camp he had commanded. No elaborate gallows. No ceremony. The Czechs used a simple method: a post, a rope, and a platform. Former prisoners were present. So were soldiers. Justice wasn't whispered. It was witnessed. The execution was swift. And for those who survived Terezín, it was not revenge. It was closure. A small, imperfect, but necessary answer to unimaginable cruelty. The small fortress never had gas chambers. It didn't need them. It killed through starvation, disease, exhaustion, bullets, and fear. And Heinrich Jöckel was the man who made that system run smoothly. History doesn't always get justice right. But sometimes, just sometimes, it lands exactly where it should. Thanks for watching.